Hey bakers, it's Kye. Today we are making our lemon bliss cake, which is a bundt cake recipe that uses fresh lemon juice, lemon zest, it gets glazed, it gets iced. It is so flavorful. Your whole kitchen is gonna smell like lemons. It's like a breath of fresh air or sunshine when you just need a little bit of brightness. And I'm gonna show you how to make it. So I have all my ingredients for my lemon bliss cake. I've got my sugar and butter, salt. We've got 4 large eggs. We've got our King Arthur all-purpose flour, baking powder, and some milk, as well as 2 fresh lemons. The first thing I'm going to show you is an optional step that's not actually written into the recipe, but it gives you maximum lemon flavor. So if that's what you're going for, take the time to do this. So instead of adding the lemon zest at the end, we're going to zest 2 fresh lemons into our sugar and massage it a little bit so that it releases some of that oil from the rind. It'll become really aromatic and the final cake will be super lemony. So that's what I'll do first. Zest all of the yellow part. Don't get into the white pith. That part's a little bit bitter. Okay, I've pretty much fully zested my lemons, and now I'll just take a minute to use my fingertips and massage the zest into the sugar. So this is a great step to have kids do if you have any little helpers in the kitchen. It's really fun sensory experience and smells awesome. You just want to break up any large clumps and make sure that the zest is evenly distributed throughout the sugar. Now we're going to cream our butter with this lemon sugar mixture that we've just made and some salt. Your butter should be room temperature. When you push your finger into the butter, you should be able to easily make a dent, and that means it's the right temperature. So to my stand mixer fitted with the flat beater attachment, I'm going to add my butter, which is unsalted. I'm going to control the amount of salt in my cake by adding the right amount, which is 1 teaspoon for this cake. And then I'll add my lemon sugar. So now we're going to cream these ingredients together. Most people just think that means mix it until combined. At this point, we're looking to build structure in our cake. You want to beat it until it's light and fluffy and it will actually lighten in color. So it should take 2 to 3 minutes. I think a lot of people would stop mixing at this point, which is when the sugar and the butter are fully incorporated, but this isn't creamed. And to get that really light, spongy texture that we're looking for, we want to get the light and fluffy texture of the butter at this point. So we're gonna keep beating until it reaches that point. If the butter seems like it's just a little cold or your kitchen's a little cold, put your hands on the bowl and the warmth of your body will actually make a difference and make it come together more easily. So just have a moment with your bowl. It works. Okay, this looks great. It's light and fluffy. It's hard to overcream your mixture, so don't worry too much about that. You'd have to beat it for more than 5 minutes. So I'll scrape down the paddle attachment and the sides of the bowl, and then we can start adding our eggs 1 at a time. We have 4 large eggs. And the reason why we do it 1 at a time is because that ensures that the emulsion stays intact. So if you were to add a lot of eggs all at once, it would separate and become a little bit slimy. We're just going to add 1 egg at a time. Let each egg incorporate before you add the next. So this is staying nice and smooth. Adding 1 egg, letting it incorporate. Tucker, come check out the texture here. This is important. So this looks pretty good. If you look really closely, you can see that there are some chunks of butter that are separated a little bit. By the time you add the last egg, that's okay. It's probably going to happen. It looks relatively smooth, and as soon as we add some flour, that will help bring the mixture back together. We have our King Arthur all-purpose flour, which is an amazing flour for cake because it gives you structure, a really nice rise in this bundt cake, but it'll be tender when you take a bite. We're adding 2 teaspoons of baking powder, which is what gives it rise, and we'll just whisk it up to combine so that there's less mixing we have to do in the bowl at this point. The more that you mix flour with a liquid, you build gluten, it makes it chewy. We're not going for a chewy cake. We're going for light lemon loveliness. So you may have seen recipes that tell you to alternate between the dry ingredients and the milk, starting with 1/3 of the flour, half the milk, 1/3 of the flour, the rest of the milk, and the remaining flour. Seems like a fussy step, but it's really worth it because it reduces the amount of total mixing that you have to do to make these ingredients fully combined. And remember, less mixing means a more tender cake. Our milk is room temperature. If you use cold milk straight from the fridge, it might cause the butter to seize up and you'll go back to that slightly chunky texture. So use room temperature or even slightly warm milk. As soon as it's combined, stop mixing. Remember, that's the whole point. We're trying to reduce the amount of total mixing. Add another third of the flour mix. Stir that in. Scrape any unmixed in flour down. We'll add the last half of the milk. Mix that in. And finally, the last portion of the dry ingredients. See, not that hard, a little fussy, but totally worth it because our batter looks beautiful and smooth. Perfect, looks great. So our lemon bliss cake batter is ready to go into a bundt pan. Today we're using the soft swirl design, which is really nice because it looks elegant, but it's not too intricate, so it doesn't stick that often, and I won't be spending hours scrubbing it later. So I'm going to grease the pan with some of this Magic Everbake pan spray, and then I'm going to add about a quarter cup of almond flour to the pan and kind of rotate it around so that the almond flour will coat the inside of the pan. So we have double duty of Everbake plus almond flour that creates this nonstick barrier, plus it tastes great and really complements the lemon, and so we won't have any issues turning this cake out. Knock on wood, there's no wood. But okay, we've got Everbake, so we don't need wood. This batter is pretty thick, so you can almost scoop it or dollop it into place. Make sure that you get all of that deliciousness out into the pan. So our batter is in the pan. I'm just going to use my spatula to smooth the top, and that will ensure that we have a nice flat cake on the bottom. A key step with bundt pans is you want to shake it a little bit to make sure the batter is evenly distributed, and then also give it just a couple taps on your surface so that any bubbles down below will come to the top and you'll get a really nicely even shape. So this is going to go into a 350-degree oven for about 45 to 50 minutes. And in the meantime, I'll show you some bundt cakes I baked yesterday, and we'll talk about what did not go that well. We're gonna have a real talk about bundt cakes because you need to know that it doesn't always work out perfectly for everyone, even good bakers. So first thing, if your bundt cake breaks, it's okay, you still are a good baker. It happens sometimes. But there are things you can do to prevent it from sticking that I'm gonna talk about right now. So yesterday, I decided that I would try something called goop. It is a mixture of oil and flour and shortening because I didn't have any Everbake pan spray. It didn't work for me so well. This whole cake broke off the top and it was practically glued to the top of the pan. I also didn't give the cake a rest when it came out of the oven. I just tried to turn it out right away. So then I thought maybe I'll try goop and almond flour. So I dusted the inside of the pan with almond flour after there was a generous layer of goop applied. This worked okay. I had to do a little cake graph situation, like the top, this part stuck in the pan. So then I got pretty serious. Then I did a very thick layer of goop and a very thick layer of almond flour on both of these. And that worked. You can see the almond flour along some of the ridges. Both these cakes turned out pretty well without any sticking, but I swear, today I got myself some Everbake and I have my fingers crossed and I think my life is going to be so much easier because of it. Now is the moment of truth, people. You gotta just take a breath, have confidence in however you greased your pan, and you can put a cooling rack on the top or you can do a plate, and you basically just want to flip it over like this. Oh, it's a good sign. We've got some crumbs. That means it's kind of releasing. You want to give it a good tap. Ooh, this is good. This is good. Oh my God, it's so exciting when it actually works. I can feel that it's released from the pan. So let's see how this turned out. ever bake pan spray, people. Okay, this looks awesome. It's got really nice color on it. So this is going to cool while I make our lemon glaze because we've only put zest in at this point, but this is a super lemony cake. So we're going to add lemon juice in a glaze and then we're gonna frost it and it's gonna look beautiful. And I'm just so pleased that it turned out perfectly this time. And yours will turn out perfectly too. You just gotta prepare your pan well. So now we're going to make the lemon glaze, which is where this cake really gets a lot of fresh lemon flavor. It starts with the 2 lemons that you zested, and you're going to squeeze out the juice so there's lots of fresh flavor, and we'll remove the seeds. Then we'll combine it with some granulated sugar and cook it over low heat, or you can melt it in the microwave just until the sugar dissolves. So I'm going to add my granulated sugar to the pot, and then I will weigh out 1/3 cup of the freshly squeezed lemon juice and add it. So stir your lemon glaze over a medium-low heat just until the sugar dissolves. Our lemon glaze is done. I'm going to take it off the heat, and the cake is still warm, and I'm just going to brush the glaze over the cake. And at first, you're going to think this is way too much glaze, but it's really not. The cake will take all of it. Remember that this is mostly lemon juice, and so it's going to infuse really delicious lemon flavor into this cake. Next, I'll show you how to make the icing, which you can skip, but I love it because it adds another level of lemon flavor and it looks really beautiful. I'm starting with 170 grams, which is about 1.5 cups of confectioner sugar. There's also a pinch of salt in the confectioner sugar, which just makes everything well-rounded in flavor. And I had some lemon juice left over from the glaze, so I'll add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice, and I'll stir it to combine, and you want the frosting to be the consistency of about molasses, so thick enough that we can drizzle it over the top of the cake. Just keep mixing until there are no lumps, and it looks pretty thick, but you want it to be this kind of slow drizzle consistency, otherwise it'll just pour down the sides of the cake. So I'm ready to add the frosting, which is a really fun step. I'm just going to spoon it over the top of the cake. You have to be a little patient to get the natural drips. This is my kind of frosting, super simple. I'm just using the back of my spoon to encourage the frosting to drip down the sides of the cake naturally. One of my favorite things about bundt cakes is that they're super easy to decorate. You can just give a dusting of confectioner sugar over the top, or you can do a drizzle of frosting like this, or you can do something even a little bit more elaborate, but it's still easy, which is decorating it with some edible flowers. So these are organic marigolds grown by my friend Laura. So I'm just going to sprinkle some of these petals over the top. Maybe I'll rip them a little bit so they're not too big. Just add some color. Again, getting that yellow in there helps people know that this is going to be lemony and delicious. And I'm also going to fill the center with some extra flowers. So this is one way you can finish a bundt cake with edible flowers, and then I'll show you one other way that is also delicious and easy and beautiful. Another easy way to decorate a bundt cake is to fill the center with fresh berries, and it works especially well if your cake is something like lemon, where it will be naturally a complement between the citrus and the berry flavors. So I just kind of fill it with a couple different kinds of berries. Okay, beautiful, so easy. This lemon bliss cake recipe is so good. It makes your whole kitchen smell like lemons. Every slice is so delicious. It has almost a pound cake texture, but a little bit lighter. You've got zest, you've got glaze, there's lemon juice in the icing. It's super fun to decorate a bundt cake. It's like a blank canvas. Get your kids involved, bake 1 or 2 of these. They're great gifts, and you can find the full recipe at kingarthurbaking.com. It's called our lemon bliss cake recipe. Make sure that you like and subscribe these videos. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I hope that you tune in next week so that you can see what we're baking. For now, I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this cake though. Thanks for watching.